Thank you for joining us for a very special episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. With me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
And joining us for this festive season, it's Natalie Pluck.
Hello.
We're taking a look at Gremlins.
And Gremlins is a hilariously funny film about an inventor who comes across Gizmo, what is a mogwai, a little creature, takes it back to be a Christmas present for his son. His son is, there's these rules, you don't feed him after midnight, don't get him wet. There spawns new gremlins that trick him into feeding him. They gradually become gremlins and absolutely devastate the town. Like, thoroughly devastate that town. It's. I don't even know if I watched this all the way through. I enjoyed it, though.
Tradition dictates that our guest go first. So, Natalie, why is Gremlins a special film?
Oh my god. Gremlins is really, really special to me because it's just a good film in general. Christmas aside, it's a really good film. One of my favourite things is that everybody in Gremlins is like a fully realised character. Like, you have just landed in their world in a moment that's going on, and all of the little traits in people aren't just for convenience sake and for moving the plot on, I feel, which is a big thing for a lot of films, especially Hollywood films. And you kind of look into these weird and slightly depressing little vignettes of people's lives. I don't want to speak forever, but I just kind of pinpointed my 3 favourite moments of the film of why I think I love it so much, apart from the fact that Gizmo is the most adorable little creature in the world.
You remind me of Gizmo, or Gizmo reminds me of you.
Me?
Yeah, it's just the way, I don't know, it's your mannerisms, it reminds me a lot of Gizmo.
Above the tree with a voice heard.
So one of my favourite moments in this film that I think is a highlight for me, because there's no damsels in distress. There's evil, there's a battle of almost good and evil going on, but there's no damsels in distress. And that's never been more apparent than in the scene with his mum, with Billy's mum, when the gremlins have just hatched in the kitchen and she destroys them. And there is no hesitation. She just gets in there, gets on with it, murders the hell out of some gremlins.
I've got in my note here that Lynn Peltzer is an absolute boss. She's more like her in horror films. She owns it. She owns that scene. I agree with you, Natalie. I think that's one of my favourite, if not my favourite scene in the film.
She's my hero. She kicks ass.
You can go along as well to his partner. And the way she's obviously in the bar, she's trying to appease to all the gremlins.
That's my second on the 3 top moments. Is the bar scene and all the vignettes that comes with of this table over here has got this weird gangster gremlin going on and a mobster and all the little scenes like that. And I love the moment where she realizes that they don't like the light from the fire, and she's like, right, we'll use a flash on a Polaroid to get out of this situation. And then Billy does show up, but he shows up just as she's leaving, she's already sorted herself out.
I particularly like the part where they're playing poker and you have the female gremlin next to the guy going like this. I was in hysterics. That was a funny scene.
That scene really is funny. For me, in my head, it always sticks out as the moment where if you had any misgivings or if you weren't sure at all, that's a scene that sort of puts a stamp in the ground and it says, no, the gremlins are essentially just Looney Tunes.
Yes, yeah. It's mischief for mischief's sake at any cost, literally at the most extreme cost of life.
They kill people, man.
Yeah. Oh my god! Third favourite moment.
Or is this the stairlift by chance? I was crying with laughter.
I'm not ready.
Oh, they did such a good job, though, of leading into that and making her the most unliked character ever, and then just launch her out of a window via a stairlift.
Mrs. Deagle is literally pure evil.
When she sat in the chair, I was thinking, please throw out the window. When she was going up, I was saying, please go out the window, and she went out the window, and I was crying with laughter. I was like, thank you for delivering. Brilliant. Little side note: the young lad who's the young lad that's mates with Billy.
Corey,
he's a young
Corey Feldman.
Exactly. Yep, who does Goonies and then obviously Stand By Me, which we really loved. So that was a nice little nod.
And
He looks like
darling, stand by me.
So what I really enjoyed about it is how well made it is, how unreal the production design is, like the snow and I tell you what, there's a really cool scene towards the start with the lighting where it's like, I'm pretty sure it's like lit by the fire. Obviously, this is a Christmas film. I didn't know this actually until you said let's do Gremlins for Christmas. Their inclusion of Christmas is superb. So what they do is like you have the Christmas songs that start and it's Dajek sound on. I always get mixed up. It's Dajek, yeah. So it's in the film. So then he turns off the radio and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I like it when a film does that. Later on, you hear It's a Wonderful Life on the TV and it gets referenced and it's like, oh, thank you, so-and-so, thank you, so-and-so, that scene. They also use, is it Invasion of the Body Snatchers? I know it's not on Christmas.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
The original version. It's the use of media, and again, like Snow White, it's the use of media and the way that influences the film and the characters like kind of react with it, but it's not the center plot of the film. And how the characters interact with them, just as we as an audience. I thought that was so fucking cool.
For me, that's sort of the thing that makes Gremlins really stand the test of time.
What are they doing?
We're watching Snow White. And they love it.
One thing we haven't really mentioned here, it's actually written by Chris Columbus. Chris Columbus is just one of those writers and directors who just gets like that childlike wonder. And like, is there any better place for that childlike wonder than Christmas films? Like he did it with Home Alone. He did it with the first Harry Potter film. He just gets that perspective so much. The film is produced by Steven Spielberg. It has that sort of energy about it. This is Steven Spielberg at his height as well. And obviously directed by Joe Dante. And Joe Dante was a bit of like he was sort of being taken under Spielberg's wing at the time. I think those three, they come together to create a very special mixture. But really, for me, and I think the thing that you're picking up on there, Andy, is that the film, the film's charming. It's a really lovely film. The Gremlins are so great. Like Gizmo's such an iconic character, all that sort of stuff. But the thing that makes me still love this film, like years and years later, watch after watch after watch, it's the subtext of what it's really talking about. Because
that's really cool. I like because he says it at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the old man sort of leaving at the end says that your society has done with these gremlins, these mogwais, exactly what it does with everything. And this film really, it's about consumerism. It's about Western pop culture and its influence onto Eastern traditions. And the way in which it's not just like this sort of happenstance, the way in which they thoroughly embed that at every turn. You're right, It's a Wonderful Life is in there. Burger King's like in one of the opening shots. You've got Donkey Kong popping up. You've got the whole section with Snow White. And remember, this is a Warner Brothers film. They had to license Snow White from Disney.
Oh, yeah, because I was wondering about that. I was wondering if it's the same studio.
Even down to like, at the very end, the thing that spurs Gizmo onto actually standing up and fighting Stripe. He has a moment where he could give up, or he can go and like jump in his little pink car and try and take him out. But the thing that he remembers is a film. It's not Billy that inspired him. It's not the old man that inspired him. It's a film that he watched just like one, random Sunday night or whatever.
But I love that because that's a huge part of his character. Like he loves TV. It's almost like Gizmo's a child.
Yeah.
And he's so influenced by it.
And the best thing is, my favorite thing about this is that Gizmo is influenced by it in a thoroughly positive way.
Yeah.
Whereas the Gremlins are influenced by it in a kind of a shallow aesthetic way. And in just a way where when they go to the bar and they cause out mischief, they're just sort of pulling references out for the sake of it. Whereas Gizmo's the one who's sort of being influenced by it on a moral level.
I feel like Gizmo represents the virtues of human society, whereas the Gremlins, they're like the vices of human society.
The other sort of little, I guess, running joke almost that sort of pulls this film together for me is just the simple concept of Gremlins. Now, Gremlins sort of originated as a concept, I guess, I know slightly earlier than this, but they really sort of solidified into what we understand them now in World War II. With like pilots who would talk about having gremlins in their machinery. And Mr. Futterman in this is a perfect example of that. Of somebody who is suspicious of having gremlins in his machinery and then that becomes like a literal point of view.
He's a massive xenophobe as well. Yeah. So it's like in his head he's put the two together, but you can tell it's come from a place of being a vet.
Dante, I've got a couple of questions for you, as obviously being big fans of this film. First of all, a little notice. I noticed something. The department store window, he hit it with a little kid's toy. That needs some double glazing, but I understand that it might be a product at its time. No double glazing. Anyway, so how do the gremlins not replicate in the snow? Also, they drink alcohol.
You're not allowed to, just the suspension of disbelief. You're not allowed to pick apart the rules. Otherwise, what's the point in the film? That goes along with the time zones. When does midnight count for them, kind of thing.
There's that scene in Gremlins 2 where they address all this stuff and they poke fun at this, because obviously after this film came out, everyone had those exact same questions. So in Gremlins 2, they put a scene in where some characters are like drawing light to all these ridiculous natures of the rules.
Gremlins 2 is just one massive parody and poking fun at it at Gremlins 1, I feel.
Yeah, Gremlins 2 is a very different film.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how much as well those 3 rules are really a creative solution to the problem that we're faced with practically.
Keep him out of the light. He hates bright light, especially sunlight. It'll kill him. And keep him away from water. Don't get him wet. But the most important rule, the rule you can never forget, no matter how much he cries, no matter how much he begs, never feed him after midnight.
By the way, shout out to Chris Wallace, because Chris Wallace did the puppets for this. Now, he had previously worked on The Fly, but according to him, this was inordinately more difficult. This sort of puppetry, this sort of animatronic work, no one was doing this at the time. You had Jim Henson, but this is not a Jim Henson film, and like anyone outside of that, how do you find the resources for it? How do you find the influence for it? How do you find people to help you with it? And Chris Wallace just knocked it out of the park.
I think that's part of the how it's aged well. Like even nowadays, those puppets, yes, they're very kind of like slowish in their movements, but they are so realistic in their portrayals, like the way that their face changes. So I think that really helps like kind of this film last its time.
And I've always wondered how much were those 3 rules brought in to sort of counteract that, because as we all know, effects look best when they're in the dark. So let's make your puppets allergic to bright light. We all know those puppets can't really get wet. It's not a good idea unless you design like 1 or 2 to get wet. So let's make sure they stay away from water all the time. And then I always wondered if maybe the eating after midnight thing was the only one they were actually going to go with. The thing that transformed them into the gremlins.
That's interesting.
That's a really interesting the thought process around it.
I can continue just absolutely gushing over this film as well. Every time I watch it, there's like something else I pick up on. This time around, it was the shot where they introduced those 3 rules. Because as the voiceover's playing and as Billy's dad's walking through Chinatown, he's talking about keeping out a bright light, and we have car headlights that are shining into the lens. He then starts talking about not getting them wet, and he sort of trips over a puddle. And then he starts talking about not feeding them after midnight, and there's a guy over on the left-hand side of the screen buying some food.
Yeah.
Like,
that's really cool.
Just the attention to this detail on this film is just mind-blowing.
I got massive John Carpenter, Big Trouble in Little China from that intro. Massive.
Quick fire round of some wonderful moments that have to be mentioned here. Pete not giving a flying fuck about the Mogwais multiplying with water because he's got a 3D comic book in front of him.
Yes. Can I also give just the Christmas tree outfit in general?
The Christmas tree outfit, the gremlin that flashes Phoebe Cates.
That was fucking funny. That was funny.
Yeah. I love that moment. It's so unnecessary, but it's so funny.
Phoebe Cates' infamous speech.
Oh my god! Which one?
Well, there's the one where she says that when people are opening up presents, that other people are opening up their wrists. But the infamous speech where that
was really good.
She suddenly decides to give this like really dark story about how her dad died on Christmas by falling down a chimney and breaking his neck.
I was thinking, what a way to die, just as Santa falling down the chimney. It's horrible. It's a deep scene, but at the same time, I was like, that's fucking funny.
A little sort of story here. Joe Dante fought for that scene. The studio tried to get rid of it time and time again. They even asked people once the film was out, sort of suggested that they could remove it from the print by telling them, where on the reel it was. And Joe Dante fought for it because to him that encapsulated the tone of the film.
Can I do one last shout out? The scene where Billy's dad is at the convention and there are so many references going on in the background while he's having just a very normal conversation on the telephone. It just cracks me up every time. The fact that in one scene, there's the time machine from the film The Time Machine on display in one corner, and then
works.
they cut to his mum on the phone. Then when they cut back to his dad in the background, the time machine's gone. There's poof of smoke, and people are like, "What's going on?" Oh, there's so many other bits that go on, but that's such a standout moment.
That's
I
actually
love
when
it.
Spielberg rides by on a bike.
What?
No way. I
Yeah,
didn't know
the
that.
guy on the weird tricycle in the foreground is Spielberg.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yep,
That has that's the same scene that has the robot from Forbidden Planet in it.
yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
I'm glad we did Gremlins. It's good to go from a film last week that, as you said, was quintessentially me to a film which is quintessentially you guys. So I'm really glad we got around to doing Gremlins. Really glad.
So there is Gremlins. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Gremlins. Natalie, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Been a
But
pleasure. Natalie.
Andy and I will be back once again next week, where we're going to do a special episode to see an end to this year, because 2020 has been a rough one. So we need to take a little bit of a retrospective.
Do you just
Right,
want just end it with me going?
Until then, get watching.
Oh no, that's not going in.